Bine ați revenit, doamnelor și domnilor, la dezbaterea Viitorul Europei este Viitorul României, primul pas spre Sibiu. Sper că această pauză de prânz a fost folosită înțelept și sunteți pregătiți pentru partea a doua a evenimentului de astăzi. Vom începe această parte prin a arunca o privire asupra mesajului cancelarului, mesajul președintelui Juncker, îmi cer scuze, starea națiunii. Ne va vorbi doamna Alina Gârbea, raportor politic a reprezentanței Comisiei Europene în România.
României. Noi, la reprezentanța Comisiei Europene în România, suntem mereu foarte bucuroși atunci când un partid politic organizează conferințe dedicate Europei și dedicate tematicilor europene și suntem cu atât mai mult bucuroși cu cât ne-ați invitat să fim și noi astăzi prezenți. Doamna ambasador Angela Cristea, din păcate, nu a putut veni și își cere scuze, ar fi plăcut foarte mult să fie astăzi aici. În ceea ce urmează, voi citi un mesaj din partea ei despre principalele oportunități pe care le-a deschis discursul despre starea Uniunii al președintelui Juncker pentru România și cred că va fi o bună continuare la prezentarea pe care ați avut-o din partea domnului Nicu Ștefănuță pe ultimii 10 ani, și prezentarea domnului Lazea despre care sunt următorii pași pe drumul spre Sibiu și spre președinția pe care o va asuma România a Consiliului Uniunii Europene. Cum ați văzut în prezentarea lui Nicu, anul 2016 nu a fost un an foarte bun pentru Uniunea Europeană. Am asistat la Brexit, am asistat la criza refugiaților sau a imigranților, depinde de perspectiva asumată. Am asistat de asemenea și la alte prelungiri de criză, ca să spunem așa. Din punctul acesta de vedere, discursul președintelui Juncker din septembrie, de pe 13 septembrie, a fost unul foarte optimist, pentru că 2017 a dat multe motive de speranță sau de recâștigare a speranței. Am avut în 2017 o recreștere a încrederii cetățenilor europeni în Uniunea Europeană. Aceasta s-a simțit și în România. Ultimul eurobarometru din primăvară arată că românii sunt în top printre cei care au încredere în Uniunea Europeană. 57% dintre români au încredere în Uniunea Europeană, ceea ce este un semn foarte bun. Și, de asemenea, au fost semne foarte pozitive și în ceea ce privește creșterea economică, relansarea economică în toată Europa și scăderea șomajului. Cumva acest discurs asupra stării Uniunii, să zicem, a închis un cerc. Cercul pe care președintele Comisiei l-a deschis atunci când a preluat mandatul și a prezentat comisia pe care o conduce drept Comisia Ultimei Șanse. Acum, în acest discurs, președintele Juncker a propus un scenariu pentru viitorul Europei. Cum poate știți, în martie al acestui an, Comisia a lansat o dezbatere publică despre diferitele scenarii pe care le poate adopta Uniunea Europeană pe viitor, iar cu această ocazie președintele Juncker și-a manifestat preferința lui și preferința colegiului pentru un scenariu în care Uniunea Europeană continuă pe un drum al egalității pentru toți. Egalitate între statele membre și egalitate între cetățenii europeni. Și este un mesaj foarte important care oferă oportunitatea statelor ca și cele precum și România de își apăra, să zicem, drepturile și poziția pe care o au ca stat membru deja de 10 ani al Uniunii Europene. Mai mult decât atât, odată cu discursul său asupra stării Uniunii, președintele și Comisia au publicat și un roadmap. Deci pentru aceia dintre voi care sunt preocupați de subiectul președinției române a Consiliului UE, așa cum a explicat și domnul Lazea, există deja niște direcții și niște documente foarte clare în acest roadmap publicat de Comisie, în această foaie de parcurs publicată de Comisie. Vedem care sunt prioritățile legislative pentru următorii ani. E drept că perioada președinției va fi una de presiune, pentru că este sfârșitul mandatului și vor trebui încheiate niște dosare care de multe ori probabil că sunt dificile și de aceea vor fi ajuns până în acel moment neîncheiate. Și deci va fi un moment în care România și guvernul României va putea să își testeze capacitățile de negociator. Este o fereastră de oportunitate și cred că asta s-a văzut foarte mult în mesajul politic pe care președintele Juncker a vrut să-l transmită. Însă și ideea de a lansa acest summit de la Sibiu pe 9 mai arată rolul central pe care vrea să-l acorde României și noilor state membre în procesul de reconstrucție. Teoretic, la Sibiu, pe 9 mai, după ce Marea Britanie va fi ieșit din Uniunea Europeană, toate statele membre și toți liderii europeni trebuie să se întâlnească pentru a se pune de acord și pentru a anunța public, de fapt, care este direcția în care vrea să o ia Uniunea Europeană, care este viziunea pentru viitorul Uniunii Europene. Și deci Sibiu și România, bineînțeles, are marea oportunitate să intre în istoria europeană alături de orașe precum Nice, precum Amsterdam, care au un nume cu o foarte puternică rezonanță în istoria integrării europene. Mai mult decât atât, s-a anunțat și posibilitatea lansării unui instrument prin care Comisia să ofere sprijin tehnic și financiar pentru aderarea statelor care nu sunt încă în zona euro și își doresc să facă parte din zona euro. Și ne-am bucurat să vedem că această propunere a relansat cumva dezbaterea și în România despre acest subiect important. România are obligația prin tratat să adere la zona euro. Este o oportunitate importantă această mână întinsă de către Comisie pentru a ajuta țările care nu sunt încă în zona euro. Și, nu în ultimul rând, președintele Juncker și Comisia și-a exprimat sprijinul, nu e pentru prima dată, și-a exprimat și-au reiterat sprijinul pentru aderarea României și a Bulgariei la spațiul Schengen. Dincolo de retorică și de faptul că s-a transmis mesajul că Europa trebuie să respire cu ambii plămâni, și cu cel estic și cu cel vestic, că toate statele trebuie să aibă același loc și același rol, cred că s-a arătat și multă înțelegere față de contextul în care se află țările din estul Europei, prin menționarea necesității, de exemplu, de a nu avea standarde duble la alimente, să avem alimente de aceeași calitate, necesitatea de a avea acces egal la vaccinuri și la medicamente pentru copiii din România, la fel ca și pentru copiii din Belgia sau din Olanda. Și nu este de ignorat acest mesaj politic care a fost transmis în septembrie în plenul Parlamentului European. Ceea ce mă aduce la a doua parte și la privirea spre viitor. Din punctul nostru de vedere, centenarul și președinția Consiliului Uniunii Europene sunt practic pot fi privite și ca niște borne în procesul de integrare europeană al României, adică vor fi niște momente în care noi putem să măsurăm exact cum a evoluat practic România ca stat membru UE în acești ultimi 10 ani. Asta dincolo de cifre, pentru că bilanțul este făcut și este clar unul pozitiv, PIB-ul a crescut, nivelul de viață a crescut, exporturile au crescut și toate aceste cifre sunt publice. Mai greu de măsurat este însă costul care l-ar fi suferit România dacă nu ar fi fost un stat membru UE, adică nu putem să facem contraistorie, să vedem ce s-ar fi întâmplat în afara acestei aderări. Și mai greu este de evaluat partea simbolică și emoțională care este legată până la urmă de integrarea europeană, pentru că este și o chestiune de sentiment și de valori europene. De aceea, 2019 va fi un moment în care România își poate asuma în mod clar rolul de stat refondator al Uniunii Europene. Știm foarte bine că la început am avut 6 state fondatoare. Acum este nevoie de state refondatoare care să redea elanul integrării europene și să redea încredere în faptul că vrem să colaborăm unii cu alții și vrem să mergem mai departe împreună. Până la urmă acesta ar trebui să fie sau ar putea să fie principalul mesaj pe care România și autoritățile române pot să-l dea la nivel politic în timpul președinției. Românii pot acum să arate, să spunem, nu numai ce vor ei de la Europa și ce se așteaptă de la Europa și ce pot să ofere Europei. Noi, la reprezentanța Comisiei Europene în România, ne vom oferi serviciile, să spunem, ca o platformă de dialog pentru încurajarea dezbaterii, a cooperării, a consensului atunci când este posibil și vom organiza dezbateri pe temele care vor fi probabil cele mai importante, adică viitorul cadru financiar multianual, care va fi dezbătut în timpul președinției, viitorul politicii de coeziune, un subiect foarte important și la nivel european și la nivel românesc și sperăm să profităm de o colaborare cât mai bună cu toate partidele politice. Vă mulțumesc!
Mulțumesc foarte mult! Pe mai departe, conferința se va schimba în engleză. So, as it follows, we will switch to English, which is your language. I think you're a bit happy with this. All right. In the next hour, we will hear from the European political parties present here. Our first speaker will be Baroness Rosalind Scott. She is member of the House of Lords in England, an MP, former president of Liberal Democrats, and vice president of ALDE. To use this.
Use that. Good afternoon. Thank you for that welcome, and thank you to all of you who have made me feel so welcome since I arrived here yesterday. And I want to congratulate you on hosting this conference this afternoon. It's interesting that in the UK, I've spent several decades trying to get people to talk about Europe, and they never have. It's only now that we decided to leave that we are finally beginning to talk about Europe. And all the pro-Europeanism that the UK needed appeared on the 24th of June last year. So congratulations on seizing this agenda and getting ahead. And it's also, I think, quite moving for me to be here in Timișoara, where not so many years ago, one generation, some very, very courageous people started the revolution. And it's easy, when you look back, to forget that success was not inevitable. There might not have been a smooth path through to democracy, and people took huge risks, and many of them paid the ultimate price. So I'm here to speak to you this afternoon, partly as a British politician, but mostly because I'm a vice president of the ALDE party. And I need to start by distinguishing between the ALDE party and the ALDE group. The ALDE group is our group in the European Parliament, led, of course, by Guy Verhofstadt. But the ALDE party, of which I'm the vice president, stretches right across Europe and brings together more than 60 liberal political parties from 40 European countries. And we also claim to be the first and the only European political party, because we have reached beyond member parties and we have created individual membership so that individuals can become members of ALDE. We started off very small. We weren't sure how this would work out, but we now have more than 4,000 individual members across Europe who are actively contributing to policy making and developing our party. And it's through our work with all of those parties in their very different national political environments that we come together to seek solutions to the numerous and various challenges which are coming up now against liberal values, and how to fight these illiberal forces where we see them. And I think despite all of the difficulties that we've talked about so far today, ALDE members, liberals in Europe, are enjoying great success. We're stronger than we've ever been before and are increasingly influential in the corridors of power in Brussels as well as in national capitals. Today, the ALDE party numbers 8 prime ministers around the European Council table. Liberals are present in government in 15 EU countries and hold a variety of ministers. We have representatives throughout local government. We have a very active group in the EU Committee of the Regions, and we've also created an ALDE mayors network to further strengthen our presence in local government. We also hold 5 important portfolios in the European Commission, and they're portfolios which allow liberals to lead the way in Europe on some of the issues which matter most to us: international trade, justice, gender equality, transport, and the digital economy. And it's also the case that the ALDE group are the kingmakers in the European Parliament. We're not the largest party, but no one doubts our influence, and no majority can be formed unless we're on side and the ALDE voice is heard. And you may have gathered that with Guy Verhofstadt as our leader, the chances of silence are quite remote. There is an active and a growing network of ALDE politicians working together to promote liberal values across Europe. And you may wonder, well, with 60 parties, with such different backgrounds and traditions, what is it that binds us together? And I think it's worth saying, I do accept that there are many liberals who belong to other parties, and that there are liberal values held by people who never belong to a political party. So I don't claim that ALDE is the exclusive home of liberalism. But I was reflecting on something that was written by a British academic, a historian, very pro-European, very liberal, Timothy Garton-Ash. And he talked about this tension that you often find in liberal parties. Because on the one hand, we are always looking for how you achieve the highest possible degree of individual liberty and freedom without infringing on the liberties of someone else. And this is the classic liberal dilemma. It's the question to which liberals always turn. And for the last century, most liberal parties have had a discussion about the economy. Is it, on the one hand, a more right-wing, economic, free trade, market-focused, deregulatory platform? Or is it a more left-wing, a more social, state-friendly, empowering liberalism? And you often find within the same Liberal Party that there are tensions on both these sides. You sometimes find in countries there are 2 Liberal parties where these differences are evident. But what Garton Ash argues is that this is actually an argument about how you achieve a liberal future, and it's not about the liberal future itself. On that we are agreed. So in other words, liberals believe in individual liberty and responsibility, and we try to translate the principle of individual liberty into practical policies which promote economic freedom and civil liberties. At the moment, we're seeing an improving economic outlook for all the countries in the European Union, except one. But I think we have to acknowledge that these are still difficult times for the EU. For the first time, and with enormous regret, the EU is faced with one of its members leaving the club. Now, I'm a Brit, and I am a passionate pro-European. And it does make me sad that within Europe, it has taken the threat of a country leaving to begin to focus on a new way forward. And of course, paradoxically, the UK has decided to leave the Union when many of our neighbours to the east are so eager to join or to deepen their participation, precisely because they see the EU as a beacon of peace and stability. And of course, across the world, what we see is the growth of regional trading blocs, not countries acting alone. We are still faced with a migration crisis, caused partly by the continuation of conflict in our neighbourhood, but also because of poor economic conditions, particularly in parts of Africa. And we have to accept that Europe, that the EU will always be a beacon for people who are dispossessed in some way. And as understandable and as sympathetic as we might feel personally, we also have to understand that we have to cope with these migration flows, and that neither an open door policy nor the construction of new walls is going to be the solution. We have a major threat from international terrorism, as we saw just yesterday in Egypt, and we also have a neighbour to our east which is seeking out weakness and is becoming increasingly effective at influencing the spread of disinformation and sowing the seeds of distrust amongst our citizens. And then we have the rise of populism. And I fear 2016 will be remembered as the year in which the seeds of populism began to bear fruit. And you see this in many parts of Europe, indeed the West at large. We're faced with political movements who prefer to look internally. They want to abandon the virtues of cooperation and the benefits of exchange and trade. Now, we may all deplore that, but we've also got to recognise that globalisation, the speed of change, and the disruption of technological change has created feelings of insecurity and concern amongst our citizens. So it has to be our challenge to reflect on those concerns and enable citizens to adapt to changing circumstances, which we have the power to shape and to address, but we do not have the power to stop from happening. And it means we have to look at what is seen as an increasingly unequal distribution of wealth. Globalization and the power of the market has lifted hundreds of millions of people across the globe out of poverty. But around the world, automation, digital changes in the highly developed countries have left many people behind, and they feel under threat. I'm a regular visitor to India, and I was very interested in a comment from a German writer, an Indian writer, observing Germany and observing Europe. And he talked about India and said, here is a nation rising on the basis of political and economic liberty, the ones which liberated the West. And this is happening at a time when the West is having doubts about its own system of liberalism. I think it's reassuring, he said, that the principles that gave rise to and brought so much prosperity and freedom to the West are now being affirmed in the East and here in India. And the rise of India is not just good for the 1.2 billion Indians, it's good for the world. So isn't it interesting that the doubts we have are not being reflected elsewhere? So the challenge of populism is apparent right now in our neighbourhood, and threatens to undermine the very real benefits of the liberation of people from totalitarianism and communism, which has been achieved in my lifetime. Over the border in Hungary, we liberals have followed with increasing concern the desires of Viktor Orban to build an illiberal democracy. And we've been raising our voices very loudly in European circles Indeed, Guy Verhofstadt and Sophie in 't Veld have been so vocal that they've now been named by the Orban government as public enemies. I'd regard that as a badge of honour. ALDE isn't just raising its voice, it also acts. We voted for Budapest as the venue for our annual Congress in 2016, precisely so that we could bring more than 1,000 liberals from right across Europe into the heart of this new message. And we did the same the following year when we chose Warsaw as the venue for our annual Congress, because there the ruling PIS is increasingly active to undermine the rule of law and risks moving the country into the periphery of the EU. And it's sad to see that the status Poland once had is now in decline. Poland desperately needs pro-European voices and a strong European force. And so the ALDE party have been working very closely with our partners Nowoczesna to raise liberal voices in Poland. And then we have the election of Donald Trump. His policy platform and campaigning and governing style are so totally different to anything we have ever seen before that we are, to some extent, mesmerized as equally as we are horrified. And we have to accept that if what was a beacon of democracy for the whole world can face such a hostile takeover, we here in Europe have to be prepared not to ignore citizens' concerns, because we don't want to see the rise of Euro-Trump. And it's also clear that we can't continue to rely on the US as a steady and stable partner. Now, any one of these challenges I've mentioned could be problematic for the EU, but coming together, they do face a major threat. However, out of that also comes great opportunity, because the EU is going to have to change. And we have to be optimistic, I believe, about its capacity to change and about how we can help it to change. Immediately after the referendum in the UK, the leaders of the EU 27 met in Bratislava, and they acknowledged that although the EU is far from perfect, it is by far the best instrument we have for addressing these new challenges, that the EU needs to be a guarantor for peace and democracy. And the emphasis they placed there, and which continues to be placed, is on meeting the expectation of citizens and recommitting to core European values. And so the emphasis on citizens is at the heart of the Rome Declaration and the Commission's White Paper on the future of Europe, as well as the 5 so-called reflection papers that the Commission has produced in the meantime. The EU and its leaders have to determine to address the challenges of a rapidly changing world and offer our citizens security and new opportunities. So these reflection papers work towards 4 key aims: a safe and secure Europe, a prosperous and sustainable Europe, social Europe, and stronger Europe. And the President of the Commission, Jean-Claude Juncker, and the new French President Macron have all talked that in some way what they're saying is that the EU has to do less in order to do more, to focus much less on the small things. And I was thinking back to the first time I ran for the European Parliament in 1999, and I remember expressing the great frustration that the EU seemed powerless to do anything about what was happening in Bosnia, but we were legislating on the content of sausages. And it's taking a long time to move away from that. We have to do the big things. The European Union is at its heart a liberal project, not based on a common language or religion or history. It comes from the free and the resolute will of people who understand that we only maintain peace by connecting our destinies, and that you have to sacrifice small pieces of national sovereignty to get higher rewards. Democracy, human rights, and a free market economy should be the common currencies of Europe. And I believe we've seen some really encouraging signs in the last few weeks. Just 10 days or so ago, 23 member states signed a joint notification on permanent structured cooperation, which is really reflecting the new situation in America. These member states have agreed to step up their work on defence cooperation, not as some sort of European army, but as sensible cooperation in areas like logistics, procurement, and medical provision. 20 member states have agreed on the creation of a European public prosecutor, and the EU is proposing to deepen the mandate of the Agency for Network and Information Security to tackle this big issue of our cyber security and to secure our information society. So I believe that liberals, both in and out of the ALDE party, have to unite and speak about the politics of optimism, the very real benefits of cooperation and mutual understanding. Because whilst other ideologies live off fear, uncertainty and insecurity, liberalism lives off hope, trust and optimism. And therefore it's liberal voices which are needed across Europe to articulate this change. So the task that we see in ALDE in the months and years ahead is nothing less than to restore trust in the EU institutions that underpin our society, to show our citizens that they can and they do work. When Romania holds the presidency in the first half of 2019, this will come at a crucial time for Europe. But it's also really important for Romania too, because it will be in a position of leadership and also under very great scrutiny, and that can be for good and for bad. In the summer of that same year, citizens here in Romania and across Europe will elect a new parliament to meet in Brussels and Strasbourg. So I hope that your representatives and liberal representatives across the EU can increase their presence in the parliament. I think it would be a great signal of hope. And to achieve this goal, the ALDE party is already thinking ahead to that election and outlining a campaign which aims to rebuff Euroscepticism and populism. And we've begun to put together a manifesto for those elections. We want to enshrine a vision of Europe that is positive and liberal. We have a document which will be produced, which is being developed, well, it's being chaired by the former Liberal Prime Minister of Estonia, and which brings together a team of eminent Liberals to draft this manifesto. And we'll hold a series of forum events right across Europe on the key themes. But we want it to be more than about fine words. The ALDE party offers its members a wealth of practical advice and support in campaigning, in messaging, media skills, and in party capacity building, such as fundraising and creating databases. Because it isn't enough just to be right, you have to win. Crisis is bringing new opportunities, so we must reject the politics of pessimism and these people who seek to steal our dream and the people who tell you that nothing can be done. And we've got to remember that it's easy to stand on the sidelines and heckle. So we, all of us, have to step up and create a new politics of optimism. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your beautiful words. And I think that regardless if UK leaves or not the European Union, we will consider you always a European politician, more than a British one. Our next speaker will be Madam Vula Tsetsi, Secretary General of the Green Political Group in the European Parliament.
Do you want to use this? Okay.
Thank you very much. And maybe you allow me to make a very short presentation because indeed I'm not directly representing the party because I'm the Secretary General of the group in the European Parliament and not the Secretary General of the party. I have to excuse the party for their absence because exactly this day they have a meeting in Sweden, they have their Congress. And for them it was not possible to send somebody, but they kindly asked me to come. And I took the occasion because we are working extremely closely with the party, so what I will tell you, it also reflects a lot what the party is doing at the European level. I would like also just in one word to say who I am. I am a Greek, living in Brussels several years. I made my studies of urban and regional planning in Venice. I am the Secretary General of the group, I will say, for some decades, but I will not tell you my age. But, and therefore, really, I saw this group growing from a group in the European Parliament a little bit in the margins in the beginning, dominated by one or two nationalities, but with the years a group which had a certain impact and has a certain impact and shares the common values among us with a certain continuity and also persistence and also a certain impact on the things we are practically trying to defend. At the same moment, we see today that what we are facing at the level of the European Union, it is probably one of the biggest crises. I'm in the Parliament several years, and I must say what we are facing today, not only with Brexit, not only with migration, with the financial, the social crisis, not only with the Catalan crisis, whatever it happens, but it is a moment which, as President Juncker said, that is the last chance, because if things will change, or I don't know in which direction we will go. And I was trying a little bit to enter in the discussion of this morning, but also enter in a discussion that the citizens of our countries, and I put a little bit the Greeks together with Romanians because we are from peripheral countries, we are not from Germany or from France, we are not from the big countries with big impact. We are somehow also foreseen and perceived as countries, as citizens of, let's say, I will not say second degree because maybe I will look too radical on that, but nevertheless in terms of influence, with much less influence than the big countries. But I will say that if I'm looking this perspective from our perspective, from your perspective, I mean, what we can do? I mean, what we can do if we, as Europeans, we are not able to talk to people, to explain to people what are the proposals, how we can come close to them, how we can understand what's going on, how we can solve the problem of the raising of poverty, or of energy poverty, of people that they are starving, of people that they don't see future. I can start to make a very long list of issues linked to the European technocracy or whatever. I will try really to not go so much deep on that because later also we will discuss about the European project. But I would like just to say that indeed, and especially after Brexit, you need a real change and you need a real new direction for the European project. We cannot anymore come too late and too little, with too little. We cannot anymore be seen as technocrats, that this European Union is made by elites for elites, or that we leave a very big part of the population. We are talking about 1/4 of the European population which is coming close to the threshold of poverty. And how we can talk about the European project if your citizens get 400 euros per month, and if my citizens and my parents in Greece, they are getting a little bit more, but under terrible conditions, and we are not talking loudly about social justice. Because in the European Union, if the question of social justice will not be in the center of the debate, we will not go too far. I agree that the European Commission is doing steps. And I also agree that they try with this reflection paper about the future of social Europe. They try to do something. But we need to do more of what we are doing. Much more of what we are doing. Because this crisis we are facing, I mean, I'm sorry, to put it like that, why people become anti-European? Why people, they vote on the extremes? Why people, they don't go to vote? Why people, they don't trust the system? It is everything because everything is Europe or whatever? No. It's because people, they don't see future. Because this European Union needs not only to defend the multinationals, not only to close the doors about practically the big, to open the doors to the big business. We can not only say, and I'm sorry again, I'm coming to the Greek case, that yes, the Troika, perfect, they enter. They do a lot of anti-constitutional things when it comes to the measures they put in my country, even if 90% of the problem we had in Greece, it was due to two big groups dominating for 40 years, mess it up completely, and therefore, obviously, you arrive in 2009 in the combination with financial and the social crisis, and also with what happened with why we entered the euro. I mean, everybody knew we were not ready to enter the union. Barroso knew we were not ready to enter the union. Barroso decided, because he wanted to be elected in a second term, that we should have, for political reasons, entering the union. So only to say that indeed, what practically nothing it was not known. I mean, everybody knew what's going on, but they decide politically to go in a different direction. And the question is that you cannot not anymore continue to think that Europe can work in the way it works. And also continue to think, yes, I agree that we should do less and in a better way, and not mixed on everything. But if the better regulation and the less becomes an issue of where we manage to find majorities, we should not really bother the EPP, because maybe Orban or whoever on these things, they cannot go so far. So if Europe becomes the minimum denominator in order to go in front, then we really have a problem, because we have to put ambitious, and the Commission has to take the fights, and the Commission has to raise the voice when fundamental rights are really not respected at the level of the European Union. And the Commission must say, we cannot go on with a taxation which is as it is, because coming back what I said before, yes, Troika, etc., perfect. And you are asking the Commission, what you are doing with the taxation? Do you try to find a kind of harmonized system on the taxation? How you can fight tax evasion? How you can fight paradises around that? And they tell you, we try, but we cannot go very far, because this is national competence. It is not European competence, so we don't have enough instruments. And therefore, that is the moment that courageous decision must be taken in order to create the right instruments and also the right move and the right mood to make changes. Coming on the question of taxation, indeed, things are moving. Things are moving because of the public pressure, because people are suffering, because you need social justice, but also you need tax justice. And it will look a little bit strange, but tax justice is very much linked to social justice, because it's also a matter of redistribution. And therefore, when a scandal as LuxLeaks, Panama Papers, football leaks, now we have a new scandal, the Paradise leaks, comes on the table. Obviously, the society is reacting in a different way than how they reacted some years ago, where they were looking at it too much far away. Now they say, sorry, we have a problem, because we pay, we are bad pay, we pay the taxes because they can manage to take the taxes from us, and at the end of the day, the big fortunes are outside, and that is a problem. And indeed, things are moving, slowly, but they are moving. But they are moving because there is a public pressure, but also there is pressure in the European Parliament. I don't want now to make you the list how good my party did all these years, but I'm also proud to be in this group, because we have been extremely active on all these scandals, and because we pushed the two big groups to agree on creating some inquiries committees, to put some measures on the table, to fight anti-corruption, to blame shame, and not only covering everything on this European protection because, sorry, people are not becoming anti-European just like that. I have no problem if somebody is anti-European. I have problem if we are not able to explain why we should invest in Europe, be pro-European, but also be pro-change. Because my group in the European Parliament is the most pro-European you can imagine. You die more than that. But at the same moment, my group in the European Parliament is also for pro-change. And for years, when we had Daniel Cohn-Bendit in my group, there the nuances to give, how much you will be a little bit critical, because if you will be too much, then you are not anymore federalist or sorry for the word, who cares? Because people, what they want is solutions. And without a strong European Union, but also a reformed European Union, we will not be able to give solutions on the big challenges, on the climate. I'm green, very much green, but not too much green. On the question of water, on the question of migration, on the question of transport, on the globalization that you mentioned before. You need a strong European Union in order to be able to face these challenges, because the challenges are bigger than a member state. Even Germany is not anymore able to solve alone the problems, and even the Germans, they have a lot of people under poverty, which practically they squeeze them because somehow they have to be the best. They have to be the most performed, they have to deliver, etc., and they don't look enough what's going on in their own country. Coming back on the question of the poverty, because, I made yesterday a tour around, and I detected signs. Of course, it is in the center of the city or whatever, but I really realized that also your country, as my country, is suffering from these signs. And you have, in schools in Greece, people that they don't have the possibility to eat. Children with no possibility to eat. And you have the cold, you have the energy poverty. And in the Europe of today, we cannot afford anymore not to face that, not to give solutions on that, and not to be able really to make everybody, every single citizen, to have a future and to have a possibility for a better life. I understood that I have to stop, and I will stop. I will be part of the debate later on all the things we did as a group in different areas, but I would like only to tell you that even if we don't have members from Romania in my group, you can really count on our MEPs without second or third or fourth agenda to bring up issues that they are close to you, as we did with this Rosa, the big issue, the Rosa Montana, where practically we have been extremely present in Romania, even if we didn't have any political party to carry that. So I would like just to offer via the group, but also via the European political party, our availability to follow with you issues that they are close to you. And I can only tell you, I promise you, you can count on us. And I felt extremely welcome, but also happy to discover a country which, even if it's close to Greece, it was a country I didn't know. And I hope that I will have the possibility and the opportunity to come back in other occasions to discuss with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your powerful message, and thank you for supporting Rosa Montana. Many of us here, I think, have been protesting for these weeks and weeks years ago. Our next speaker will be Mr. André Gatolon. But before that, I want to remind you all that if you post something on Facebook from this event, please use an hashtag EUSR or just USR. Thank you. Returning to our last speaker from the European political parties, he's coming from one of the most interesting, maybe, of the newest party that have appeared now, La République En Marche, and I hope I pronounced that correctly. Mr. André Gatolon, Vice Chair of the European Affairs Committees in the French Senate. Please. Do you want to use this microphone?
I prefer to have
Okay, you can have this one.
So thanks a lot. First, I would like you to apologize my bad English. I have prepared no speech. I usually make in a freestyle in French, but this time it will be in English. I badly speak English. Why? Because I've grown up in a difficult suburb in the area of Lyon, and my first teacher of English didn't speak English. He tried to speak English with us. Why? Why is it like that? Because France looks like a lot Great Britain. We are an old colonial empire, very sure of history, used to be powerful, to be number one, perhaps France perhaps at the beginning of the 19th century. Great Britain a longer time, more Great Britain is an island, so it doesn't help for the perception, I would say an objective perception of the continent, but that's more or less the same thing for France. And what happened last year in Great Britain could have happened this year in France. We were supposed to be the next on the list of the exit of Europe. And why are we here today? It's because we decide on a new political way to take the challenge, to face this challenge, not refusing the battle, going in front of the question. Because if you see what was France 1 year ago, there was a majority of people thinking that Europe was not a good thing. And even those who were in favor of Europe decide not to talk about Europe, because if you talk about Europe, you can perhaps provoke some negative reaction. That was the status, the way that the former government of François Hollande approached the European question. So I will not discuss, we will have the discussion about the proposal from Mr. Juncker, from the Commission, from Emmanuel Macron, more in details, I think, later. But I would say that how did we approach the situation? We had 1 year ago, 2 years ago, and I discussed a lot at this time with President Macron, because I was Vice President for the Finance Committee at the Senate. He was the Minister of Economy. And I say 2 years ago, I was sure he would be the next president. And they say, I'm sure too, but tell me your explanation. And finally, we agree. The constatation is that we have very powerful, populist, nationalistic movement in France, as you have in all over Europe and also out of Europe in democratic countries. But the specificity of France is that we have two movements of this kind. A national populism from far right, and also a very strong nationalism, populism from far left. And in between these two, we have a traditional, nice, more or less pro-European political party, but due to the fact that they all have been at the government during the 15 last year, they are under-evaluated, they are devaluated by the way they've ruled the government. Why? Because in order to face the populism, they have done demagogy. When we have a presidential project from the socialists, from the right, from the center, they always do some promise, electoral, I don't know, the pledges, very strong pledges, that they know, they really know that the day after the election, they can do, they can realize that. So they say more in order to fight to resist the populism, but they promise something they could not realize, as if they were new baby just born. Oh, sorry, there is an international constraint. Oh, sorry, we have to respect the Stability Pact. Oh, sorry, we have a convention that make that all what we have said during the campaign will not realize that. So we decided in creating En Marche around one person, one candidate at the presidential election, Emmanuel Macron, not to tell things we cannot do, and not to say, okay, we will promise something, but we will not be able to pay it. So the first engagement, the first requirement we give to us was to reestablish the budget and limit the budget. And it's very difficult when you arrive at the power telling to the people who have voted to you, we'll give you no money for that. We'll do other things. First, we return in Europe. We stop being always in a position when we go in front of the European Commission or meet German people to say, okay, we are not in step with our budgetary objective, so please help us. Say, okay, we'll give you more times to reach the objective of less than 3% of deficit, but you must accept that, accept that, accept that. We've lost our sovereignty, telling that we have more sovereignty because we spend more, we decide to spend more to make some promise we never realize. So the thing was, okay, we must be in Europe because Europe is an evidence. You have to explain that also in Romania, that in the coming years, by year 2050, no European country, even Germany, will stand at the G8. Because the only way we have to, we can wait in the international situation, international competition, is to be united. But it's very important, because if we are not European, we can't be Romanian or French longer than today. And it was very difficult to say we organize all our political campaign, presidential campaign on Europe. Because when we have, regularly we have a European election in France, more or less all the candidates, except one friend we have in common with Vula, Daniel Cohn-Bendit, that was the only time we've made a European election on European topics with a European project. But even the most centrist party, Mr. François Bayrou, who created the MoDem, when he ran for the European election, he speaks as a candidacy, traditional candidacy, to the French Republic presidency, the French presidential election, sorry. Not so good, my... I think better, I don't know if I came many years ago, at this time, everybody would have spoken in Romania French. I don't know, today we have to speak English or German, I don't know. It's explained also why we don't have to focus on the past. We are not old country. Also, Romania had a beautiful past, but look at Hungary. They all evoke the old time when we were an empire. It's finished. We don't have to look at the past. Okay, we have to be proud of our culture, but to do something in the present for the future. And we have to look forward. And there's one thing we must discuss later about the situation of the project. I think there is a strong difference between the State of Union speech of Mr. Juncker and the speech made by President Macron at La Sorbonne by the end of September. One said we have to repair Europe. We said, En Marche, we have to rebuild Europe, to refund Europe. Why? Because there's always this beautiful metaphor of Europe, European Union, as a horse, a common horse. And what say the traditional centrists to Mr. Juncker? They say, okay, with all the crises we had, the roof of the house has fly away by the wind. You know, the wall, all the walls, we have some cracks, important cracks, but the foundation are good. What we say is that also the foundation of Europe, the way we created in 1957, is not accurate to the challenge we have to face. We create Europe not for 6 countries, for 4 countries. Because Benelux, the objective of Europe 60 years ago was to create a common market. But Benelux, Belgium, Luxembourg, Netherlands, had yet a common market. So it was only 4, more or less in terms of economic development, in terms of population, very close one to another. West Germany, France, Italy had the same weight in terms of population. Benelux was half the part of one of these countries. So, in the way we organize a kind of co-decision, of co-federalism, of federalism, it was more or less something between pairs, between more or less equal partners. When we decide to enlarge Europe, we have missed something that on the major points for the future today, defense, security, taxes, harmonization of taxes, all the decisions today have to be taken at unanimity. So if tomorrow Malta, Luxembourg, Cyprus, or another country decide to say, we don't want to do that, all is stopped. And it's explained what, among the proposals made by President Macron, some said or could fear that, okay, President Macron will want to more reduce Europe. You want to have a kind of center who decide everything. No, we want to have the right to experiment common things to help all Europe to go further. We are in favor of more Europe in Romania and Bulgaria. You have the right to enter in Schengen, the right to enter in the Euro, and it will help us. But we must do things step by step, and moreover, we have to take some decision, some crucial decision in another way than the one we use today. Take an example. The first time I came in Romania, but only in this country, was in the 80s, just before the end of the war, and after that I was an activist for human rights. So the first time I came in Romania, it was at the beginning of the 90s, invited by Donea Conea at the creation of the Grupul pentru Dialog Social. And yesterday I was very glad to meet Vlad Alexandrescu. Told me, oh, you know this movement. I say, yes, and I'm glad to be in front of you, because you find your democratic, your intelligence and policy in this history, in this part of people who had resisted to communism, but who tried also to create a new Romania linked to Europe. And I think your party today is really not only the symbol, the concretization, the realization of this project. We've spoken more or less 30 years ago with you, but also with other people in Czech Republic, in Poland. Sorry for the Poland, the way they've gone, but I think they will return. There are also very nice people who want to change that. And what you are doing, the kind of renewal you are creating inside the society, looks like a lot of what happened in Hungary with Momentum or with other groups, but also with what we are doing in very old country as France, very old country. We think that the past is better than the future, and we don't want to think that we have to change ourselves if we want to be ourselves, if we want to be better. And I think that we have so many things to change in the way we organize a political movement, and we have to be very innovative. I often say, when people ask me, what is really En Marche? I say, we have, as the DNA, we have two branches. One is Europe, a way to create another Europe, and it's also linked to the fact we are in favor, and it's difficult at this time, in favor of multilateralism, and the other way is innovation. Not only technological, economical innovation, but also democratic, social innovation, and ecological innovation. It's, I know, very difficult to make a campaign in a country who has many doubts about Europe and situation. Who is succeeding during the French election? I think it's very important to show this case, because you say, everybody says, we were crazy 1 year ago. When I've run, because I was a former senator from the Ecologist Party, I joined at the beginning of the year En Marche, and I had been re-elected in my constituency last September. Everybody say you couldn't be elected, because we are not directly elected. We are elected by local elected people, and all these people come from the municipality election in 2014. En Marche didn't exist at this time. And I win the election. I win, and we decide during the summer to cut some spending for local communities. So it wasn't so easy. And everybody said, you are crazy. You are doing your campaign on innovation and Europe. You have to talk about local situation, how to manage. Say, no, we have to get the boldness to say something different, positive, to explain what people could get with Europe. We have to explain what Europe gives us, and very often it isn't done, because in France, when you have something through Europe, you say, that's my government, we do that, not Europe. But we have also to explain what in Europe doesn't function today, and what we can improve, what we can do a better Europe. And we have to accept the dialogue, the debate with those who are against Europe, with those who are anti-European. That's what we've done during the election. That's why we want today to create, and we have the support for from the Commission and many countries, this democratic convention before the European election. Because I don't know if we are not a European movement group, but we want to change Europe, and we need some allies, we need some people all over Europe, perhaps having a large alliance with ALDE and Greens to the next European Parliament, but we have to change very soon Europe if we want to change our society, the way of living, and the fact we can be proud of being European and also be proud to be Romanian, French, or coming from another country. It is not an antagonist thing. It's complex, but I think we couldn't be proud of being from one nationality in Europe if Europe disappears by the 2 or 3 coming decennial. So, sorry for my English once again, but I think we have a lot of work to do. And the way we have also to do in politics, it's what we try to do in France, is argumentation. Stop the slogan. We have too much slogan today. People exchange very rough words. We have to argumentate, to explain to people, taking the place where they are, sometimes against Europe, against our party, against our formation, but wanting to take the reason and the argumentation and the progression of the debate to move them from one point to another point. Sorry to be so long. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to all our 3 speakers from the political parties. I think all 3 of you are example for European politicians that we as young politicians can take. Next, we will have a coffee break, and afterwards we will start our panel discussion for the evening. We will start the panel in 10 minutes, and Dan Laza will be the moderator of this panel. Now it's 13:23, 3:23. We will meet here at 13:35, la 3:35 reîncepem. Thank you very much.